Yo, 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 hit him high, hit him low. Welcome to the No Bull Just Ball podcast. It's your boy Nick Hughes alongside Julian Delgado as always. How's it going, sir?
It's going great. Going great. We're getting closer to baseball.
Yes.
Three more, we have 3 more days until we don't have baseball games until November. So I'm
Yeah,
excited.
actually, wait, technically,
Yeah, Saturday is the
tomorrow,
first. Oh, tomorrow, yeah.
as of recording, tomorrow, Friday the 24th, is the first day of some spring training games, including the much anticipated matchup of the Boston Red Sox versus the Yukon Huskies.
Yep.
So that's obviously something that, is a real eye opener for the sport as a whole. Oh man. Um anyway, some fun stuff today. We're going 20 questions, but a variation of 20 questions in which we're gonna go back and forth. We got some 20 different question prompts lined up for today. Some thoughts on where folks might end up, where things might go. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. So we'll start right off, and I'll pose the first question to you right away. Uh, Best performance by someone who switched teams in the offseason in
All
2023.
right. So I try to go a little bit more non-conventional with this one. Kind of one of the most underrated moves. I think my sleeper choice is going to be Teoscar Hernandez. I
Ooh,
think he put up last year a 267 average, the 316 on base percentage, 491 slugging, 25 home runs, and 77 RBIs. It's a down year compared to the last few, but I expect him, especially in the Seattle lineup, to be able to reproduce what he did in 2021 and 2020, with him pretty much being an all star, top 10 in MVP voting. I think he just brings a depth to the Seattle lineup that not a lot of people are talking about.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm gonna go also kind of a forgotten man, if you will. I'm gonna go ahead and say Nelson Cruz in San Diego with the Padres. I feel like he's back to being in a situation that he's genuinely enjoy. He loved playing with Juan Soto for parts of last year,
Yeah.
but genuinely just being, I mean, just a bopper. You try to sort of play around with where you think that lineup fits together. He probably slots in fifth or sixth, really, in that DH role for them. Also, you have to think Matt Carpenter is also out there, so they're actually going to do a little bit of a lefty righty split.
Yeah.
So he just gets to pummel lefties, and in the event that someone gets injured, even early on, I look at it and say there's a good chance Matt Carpenter and himself get some work in the field with Fernando Tatis still out for a little while. So I think there's a good amount of optimism. Pressure's off, but also he can be the guy who, for some younger guys on that team like Tatis, Soto won a World Series, so maybe not him, but Bogart, there's some young guys still on that
Yeah.
team that maybe could use a real grown up in the room, and Nelson Cruz is that. And I think he'll over exceed what anybody is thinking for this year.
Yeah, no, I respect that, especially since like that veteran bottom of the I see him more of like bottom of the rotation to help out because I feel like that's the one thing that the Padres were kind of missing last year was
Yeah,
that
I can see that.
bottom of the lineup production, and I
Yeah,
feel like that definitely rounds it out.
I can see it going either way. I think it's the way I sort of see it in my head, at least, is depending, whether it's against a lefty or righty. I see either him or Carpenter, at least in the early going, slotting into that sort of five or six hole,
Yeah,
depending. So we'll
especially
see.
for like 20 games.
Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see. Switching gears to the more negative side of that same question, worst performance by someone who switched teams in the offseason. And I'll lead this one off.
All right.
I went Dansby Swanson.
Oh, okay. Think Wrigley's
Defensively,
gonna hurt him?
yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't love Wrigley Field for him, just from an offensive standpoint in general. Also, this is not the Braves lineup he's used to hitting in the middle of.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of table setters ahead of him, nor slugging protection behind him. He's a guy who I think, ultimately, I think he can have an incredible career with the Chicago Cubs. I'm just not sure he's the caliber of hitter specifically. Love him defensively. I don't believe he's the caliber of offensive talent that's going to be able to carry his own weight regardless of who's around him. And
Okay.
I think he's going to be a little hindered this year. So we'll see what happens for 2024 at least.
See, I don't think I think he'll be fine in regularly hitting. The lineup is definitely what stopped me from giving him my best performance because I was looking at him for my best performance. And
Okay.
you're right. Like instead of being the 5-6 hitter like he was in Atlanta, he's going to be the 2-3 from every projection lineup that I saw
Yeah.
earlier today when I was preparing. And I think that's not really a role for him.
Yeah. Agreed.
For mine, sadly, I think it's going to be DeGrom. I don't, not on performance per se,
Mm,
because I think when he does touch the mound, he's going to be the same pitcher. My only concern is he going to stay healthy?
yeah.
And that's the thing that's telling me, especially now that he's already hurt in spring training, is he going to stay healthy going forward for the full season? And I think that's the thing that's going to ultimately derail him this year.
Okay. That is fair. That is some fair stuff, but
Yeah,
okay.
like I said, I don't think it's based on performance. I just
Yeah.
solely base it on health for that one.
Okay. All right. So the next question is going to be the least likely of the 2022 playoffs,
Mhm.
playoff teams. So the playoffs we just saw, the least likely of those teams to return to the playoffs this upcoming season. Who do you got?
Honestly, this one was really tough
It is,
because
right?
all the teams I can see them running it back. Ultimately, I think the NL stays entirely the same unless the Cubs become a big surprise. I don't see any other team really moving
Jumping
up
in.
and down in the National League. So I have the Blue Jays.
Mm,
The Blue Jays being the team. Um, I know a lot of people are high up on their rotation. I'm not. I like their front two, but then besides that, I don't really care for a lot of the pitchers. I think Carlos Carrasco was a nice pickup, but not really what they needed. Um, and I just feel like they stayed really stagnant. And unless everybody takes that extra step, I can see them missing the playoffs. Um, Especially with the team, like for the next question, where I have them swooping in.
yeah.
What about you?
I actually really do like the Blue Jays nod there. I think this was a rotation we were really high on a year ago, and a lot of under achievements kind of I think left a sour taste. I'm actually going to go a very different route. I'm going to go with a team who is kind of a shock last year. I think overperformed in the eyes of many. And this year, it's not that I think that if anything, the team got better. I just think there's a chance for other teams in the division to play up, and that's going to be the Cleveland Guardians.
Okay.
I feel like it's a very good ball club. Do not get me wrong. If anything, they got better from last year, but I felt like we saw a lot of regression in the AL Central last year.
Mm,
This is a division where uh, there's not really going to be a situation where any team from the Central, at least in the American, and it could be argued in the National League, depending on what happens with the Cubs, Brewers, Cardinals thing. Uh, this isn't a division that's going to contend for a wild card.
okay.
Uh, and that means the only way into the playoffs for one of these AL Central teams is to win the division. And for me, if the Guardians slip up slightly, if there's some slight regression from some of their young guys, or theoretically another team in that division plays up, I see the Guardians as kind of that last man in, first man out kind of deal.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's
Because I mean, we can just lead into the next one with the least likely
yeah
team. Um,
yeah. So
who
now
missed the
it's
playoffs
the
last
most
year.
likely yeah
The most likely team who missed the playoffs last year to get in. I currently have the White Sox getting in. Um, I think I do like what they have and what the Guardians have, and it's hard for me to see that Guardians team not making it again.
yeah
And I think the White Sox, with everything going on, if they could put everything together under Pedro Grifol, Tim Anderson's going to have a hell of a year. just contract year. He's going to
Yeah.
try to perform and get the bag.
Well, I
It
didn't
all comes.
realize they actually. I didn't realize they actually have another team option on it after this year.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, so a second team option. So he's kind of in a weird spot, but
Yeah,
uh, yeah,
I didn't know that. I thought this was the year for it.
yeah, no, sadly
But
not.
anyways, it all comes down to really to the health of Robert and Jimenez.
Yeah,
But I think that getting Benintendi kind of helps with both of their healths.
yeah,
Where if you lose one, and inserting Benintendi is not going to it's not going to be a drop off of production really that much
yeah,
besides maybe power. But I can see an instance where you can see both the White Sox and the Guardians in the playoffs at the same time. So
yeah,
like it's really hard with what we have now in these teams. What team's going to leave? What team's going to pop up?
yeah. No, I mean, that's I think where we're kind of at the different end of the spectrum. I'm saying it's. I agree with you. I have the White Sox as my team as well.
Yeah,
And my way in for the White Sox is, they got to beat the Guardians. Your way in is they have the chance to usurp one of the AL East wildcard teams, which is you have the Blue Jays there. So it's, I mean, two sides of the same coin kind of deal.
yeah,
The White
and
Sox is most likely to sneak in, but we shall see.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. So from here, we're going to go a slightly different route, talking about contenders. The first perceived contender to blow it up after a bad start. Who do you got?
I got the Twins.
Ooh,
Not high
okay.
up on them. I think their 2023 is going to be the exact same year as their 2022. They're going to have a lot of up and downs, but I again like from the last segment, I just like the Guardians and the White Sox a lot more in this division,
Okay.
where it's just going to be a two-team race by the All-Star game, and I think the Twins got to face a little bit of reality.
That's fair. That is definitely fair. I went with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Okay.
This is kind of a peak value year for both
Yeah.
and we talked about it in our last episode, which you guys should definitely go check out. Last episode we talked a little bit about this being sort of a peak value year for Corbin Burns and for Brandon Woodruff. Corbin Burns things are already kind of hitting the skids after he was pretty upset with their arbitration hearing and kind of voiced his concerns to the media about how he was treated in those hearings. This is kind of the peak value, and if they find themselves, I'd say even by June, looking up, at the Cardinals and even the Cubs potentially in that division, I see this as a situation where they pull the plug, give a team a
I can see
playoff
that.
push and a full season of Corbin and or Burns. It's their time to potentially blow that thing up.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. I didn't, and I thought about the Brewers at first, but I never really saw them as contenders or teams that
okay,
could. That's my main reason, but I can
okay,
absolutely see them like blowing it up, and if they're not having a great May and June,
yeah, no, for
because
sure,
those
for sure,
pitchers will get you draft picks and
yeah,
prospects.
yeah, a whole lot of prospects. So we shall see, we shall see. Moving right along though, we're gonna go something you touched on briefly. So I guess we know who's disqualified at least partially on your end.
Yeah.
We're gonna go best 2023 stat line.
Okay.
Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, or Jacob deGrom. A very Met-centric question. Uh, I know you're down to two guys there, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw mine out real quick
Yeah. Go
if
ahead.
I may here. I'm gonna go with drum roll, please. Max Scherzer.
Oh, okay.
Kind of the dark horse here, which is kind of an insane thing to think when you talk about
Yeah.
Max Scherzer. But in a rotation that'll feature him as the ace, at least how the Mets are planning to roll this thing out, they're going to dissect the rotation a little bit more. In all likelihood, they're moving towards the six-man rotation,
Yeah.
uh, which I think is a great call for the health of Scherzer and Verlander long term. Scherzer is coming off the oblique issue last year. Hopefully, all is well there. So there's a little bit of the caveat. but I look at it as he's going to be given more opportunities to start games.
Okay.
Uh, we talked about the health of DeGrom. I think Scherzer has a sense of ownership of this rotation, and also kind of this, not for nothing, a little bit of a chip in the sense that last time him and Verlander were on the same staff, he was playing second fiddle.
Yeah.
And, that's definitely not something that he would want to repeat, given all the accolades and all he's done since. I know it's all buddy buddy, and we're just trying to learn and grow from each other. But I think these are two alpha males in that clubhouse,
Oh yeah.
and for Scherzer as the guy who was there first, who took the Cohen money before it was cool. He's definitely the guy who I think has a little bit of a chip. Definitely a desire to go out and get it done. Also, a really rough playoffs for him last year in that series
Yeah.
against the Padres. So that's not lost on me at all. So it's definitely something where in a prove it year, I love Max Scherzer.
Yeah, no, I've been loving everything that I see on social media, everybody interview him. He definitely looks like he has that chip on his shoulder this year.
Yeah.
I'm still leaning Verlander.
Okay.
Because from everything I've been seeing, I don't know, it still seems like Verlander is probably going to be their opening day starter.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much going to be the first one in the rotation.
Well,
From everything
actually, so apparently I don't know if it was made official, but the plan is to go something along the lines of Scherzer opens,
Okay.
and then Verlander comes in game four to open the second series or something like that, because they want to
Okay.
stagger their starts so that they would appear theoretically, at least one of them would appear in any given
And
series.
okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
because it's also that very Buck Showalter win every series kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, I can see that because that's very Buck.
yeah,
Um,
it's a weird, you're obviously playoffs are different, but at least for the
yeah.
season, I think it's definitely an interesting concept.
Okay, so
Um,
if that's going to be the case, I'm still going to pick Verlander, just because I feel like he had a hell of a season
yeah,
coming off of an injury, and this is his first off season in a few years where he never had to nurse an injury.
yeah,
He could just
that's true.
focus on getting better,
That is
which is
true.
crazy to say. So that's
Yeah,
why, like, I think he's going to go out. He's going to
yeah.
be in the NL Cy Young conversation. I think the wins will probably favor Scherzer, but
Actually, I was gonna go the other way because
oh,
in that
well,
sort of
I'm going based off just appearances.
yeah,
I think like the wins will probably favor Scherzer, but I think like the ERA,
yeah.
strikeout, all that is going to probably favor more Verlander.
See, I went the opposite of Scherzer would have to do better in those two categories because Verlander's theoretically going to be matching up with another team's fourth starter on any given day.
Yeah,
So that was kind of the mindset for me. If Verlander is going to have a 20-win season, as long
yeah,
as he's out there and healthy, if he throws 30 games, he's going to win 20 of them, kind of thing. We'll see, obviously, what the Mets offense is, what that looks like. But
yeah.
for me, it was more so the opposite way. Scherzer's going to have an old school Scherzer, really just limit run scoring and everything like that kind of year. So again, two sides of the same coin here.
Yeah, no, it's a good problem to have for the Mets.
For sure.
Just talking on DeGrom, if he is healthy, I still think it's going to be a similar situation from the last 5 years of him being a Mets pitcher. He's
Yeah.
not going to get the run support. Um, Globe Life is turning into a hitter friendly ballpark. I was
Yeah.
looking at the stats, and they have the eighth most home runs in that ballpark last season.
Yeah. Considering how much that team couldn't hit. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so I'm just like, it's not adding up to a good recipe for Degrom. The math
Yeah.
isn't mathing for in his favor, even
Yeah.
if he is healthy.
Yeah. I mean, if he's healthy, he's definitely one of the
He's
best
going to
pitchers
be
in baseball.
dominant. It's just the run support.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that lineup at all.
Yeah. I think that's the bigger thing. Um, all right, moving on. So, on a little bit of a rough note here, we're going to go the worst record of 2023. Who is your prediction for the worst record of 23?
I touched on it last episode. Again, watch it. Shameless plug. I have the Washington Nationals. I think it's just without a doubt, it's a tough division. Every single team is good on paper. Even if the record for Miami won't be that good, I still think they're going to be a good team. Um, and they have a bad roster.
Yeah.
That is just a recipe for just a bad time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be rough in Washington.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I went slightly different. I'm going Cincinnati Reds here. Because my logic originally I penciled in the Washington Nationals,
Mm.
but then I remembered the schedule change.
Ah, yeah.
And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, the Washington Nationals are used to getting the shit kicked out of them by this division. The Cincinnati Reds are not, you know. This is gonna be a new one for the boys down in Cincy. So
Yeah, I feel,
it's gonna be a rough go, which is unfortunate because I love the top two in their rotation. Those young starters,
yeah,
Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, I think are legitimate. They're gonna be, you know, ideally, given health, they're gonna be fixtures in that Cincinnati rotation for the next, hopefully, a very long time. It's just gonna be a rough go when they have to face every lineup in Major League Baseball, and
yeah.
that's not something that bodes well for either Central division, but I think in particular the bottom of that NL Central.
Yeah, that's exactly why I still, that same thought process absolutely works for the Washington Nationals. Because not only are they going to get beat up by their division,
Yeah,
they're going
everyone
to get
else.
beat up by everybody's division.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's fair. That is
I just
definitely.
I just think they're the worst roster in baseball, man. It's kind of
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. I mean, it's very much a let the kids play, and I love
Yeah.
that. We're gonna find out what these kids are very quick when they're facing, in a given year. That lineup is going up
And
against Garrett
and next
Cole,
year,
Jose Barrios, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Jacob DeGrom. I mean,
Spencer
them kids
Strider,
gonna
Spencer Strider, Nola, like it's
them
gonna be
kids them kids gonna see everybody.
Alcantara. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna see everybody.
So I mean, there's something to that, hopefully. But yeah, that's fair. All right, and up next we got the best record of 2023, and I'll kick this one off. It's a team I had very high hopes for, and
Mm,
they nearly delivered last year for me in the San Diego Padres. Um, this for me is very much a prove it year. It's piss or get off the pot. They spent a lot of money. They apparently were trying to spend even more with the reports of the Aaron Judge attempted signing. They feel like they found their three-headed monster, rotationally with Musgrove, Darvish, and Snell. That back end of the bullpen still worries me a little bit, but this is a year where I feel every team kind of has something that worries me.
yeah,
So I'm a little more forgiving with that. The lineup, I mean, it's the greatest 1 through 4 ever. We talked about Nelson Cruz a little bit ago, Matt Carpenter thrown in there. Um, but also, it's this year you got to go get it.
yeah,
And whether or not, we'll get into it in another episode, whether or not we believe in any team specifically to take it all the way. But at the very least, with the Dodgers kind of taking a step back in some regards this year, a lot more holes on that team. Also, the ability to beat up on the NL Central a bit more, the AL Central for the first time. Some of the lower ranking teams around the league. Also, I feel like they're a good matchup even for the better teams in the league. So for me, it's the San Diego Padres have a good opportunity to just put up 100+ wins this year.
yeah. My heart wants to say the Mets, but my body is telling me it's the Padres. They're just it's tough to beat that lineup.
Yeah,
And I do like their rotation, like you said. Their bullpen does worry me, but the fact that you have Hader at the bottom, who is
yeah,
probably one of the few actual closers in baseball,
yeah,
it kind of lessens the worry for me.
yeah.
They're definitely going to be the team that wins. I think I can say they probably more than 105 games this year.
Wow,
They have
I'd
the
love
potential
that.
to do that.
Yeah,
They have the potential to do that, like really.
yeah,
Especially with the Dodgers taking the step back. The Dodgers won 111 last year.
yeah.
Um, I think if everything goes well, I don't see why the Padres couldn't.
For sure, for sure. Hey, glad to see we're in agreement there.
Yeah.
All right, up next, who's your best rotation in baseball?
All right. So if you would have asked me this probably a few weeks ago, I would have said the Yankees. But after that Montas injury, it kind of lessens it because I really like Montas as your fifth starter over Domingo Herman. But I'm gonna have to give it to the Mets. I really like their six man. Like they're really deep in the six man rotation. Usually, when teams do a six man rotation, the 5 and 6 starters are borderline MLB ready.
Yeah,
But at this point, your fifth and sixth starters, Tyler McGill and Carlos Carrasco.
yeah,
I mean, it's tough to beat that. And on the top, you have Verlander, Scherzer. I think Senga. I'm really high up on Senga. I think he's
yeah.
going to have a really, really good year. Then you have Jose Quintana. Then obviously Tyler McGill and Carlos Carrasco rounded out.
And that's
It's
not
going to be
even taken into account. So I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly here.
yeah,
Because then I was thinking, you also have what's his name, Peterson in the bullpen,
yeah. You have
who
Peterson in the
on any
bullpen
other team
who can
is,
pop up
you know,
whenever someone goes down or wants a rest day.
I think Joey Lucheski's still there too, who can actually take on some starter role
Yeah,
there. So I mean, it's a deep squad, and the bigger thing for me is still this looming thing of if someone's underachieving on this team, not for nothing, as presently constructed, I like the Mets roster, and if someone is underachieving, I like the Mets the best to go out and get a guy. So,
yeah,
uh, yeah, it's a for me, it's a Mets thing.
yeah.
I
It
think,
really is.
yeah.
I
So,
like I said before though, I really did like the Yankee rotation before Montas went
yeah,
down.
yeah,
Just
I
because
think
I think the most underrated pitcher was going to be Severino this year. I think
yes.
going in, he no matter what, it was a contract year, so they were just gonna, hey, if you can pitch, you're going out there.
You got to think Luis Severino is the best number 4 starter in maybe baseball history.
Yeah, and I think with the contract year, he's gonna just go
Yeah,
insane, show what he has. Um, and it just sucks that I like Domingo Herman not enough to, you know,
yeah. No,
everything
that's fair.
else.
That is definitely fair. That is, yeah, I'm there with you. All right. So now we're gonna switch gears. Best bullpen in baseball, and I'll kick this one off with a team in our last episode I gave very high hopes for, and it's a team who I think runs the best bullpen uh ever, constantly. It's the Tampa Bay Rays.
Okay.
When you look up and down that Rays bullpen, you got about 6 guys who in that Rays system have established the fact they could close ball games.
Yeah.
This is also weirdly enough the first year where I was considering them for best rotation.
Yeah,
They were
they were
my
my considerations.
they were
I
in my top 4.
yeah,
They
same
hit
here.
that 4 spot for me. And I was thinking, man, so for the first time you got guys like Shane McClanahan, you got Tyler Glass now fully healthy again. You got some guys who might be given the range to go 6 or 7 where they never have been before. And I looked at it inversely and said, okay, what is the impact of that on the bullpen? Oh, that's right. That means that bullpen is going to be more well rested, ready to
Yeah.
give you those 3 quick outs than ever before because they're not being asked to stretch, innings every day. We're not going to throw out freaking openers and stuff like that. This is a legitimate rotation that has now led the best bullpen on paper already to be
Yeah.
more well rested and ready to do their job that they'd have on any other team. I mean, Tampa Bay turns this thing out every year, and this year is fixated to be maybe more of a monster than ever.
Yeah. I figured you were going Tampa Bay, so I decided to switch things up and give a little prop to a team that normally I like to shit on. I
Okay,
just like to shit on the city. So
okay,
I'm gonna give the props to the Phillies. I think they made some
okay.
big they made some big moves to bolster it. You have a five-headed monster with Sir Anthony Dominguez, Jose Alvarado, Gregory Soto, Craig Kimbrell, and Matt Stram. I think adding Stram and Soto just gives a huge lefty boost.
Well, I was just gonna say. So my issue with the Phillies bullpen
Hmm.
is my concern is that it is too lefty heavy.
Okay.
Between Strom, Jose Alvarado's a lefty.
Yeah.
Uh, um, what's his name you just mentioned? Gregory Soto is a lefty.
Gregory Soto. Yeah.
So I feel like their top guys are too left-handed oriented. Where if I'm a team with some righty bats, man, like, don't get me wrong, that team's going to kill the Washington Nationals. That bullpen, that 7, 8, 9, all their young prospects, by the way, are
Or
left-handed hitting.
lefties, yeah.
So that they have no
I don't know.
shot.
Especially with like what Alvarado and Dominguez did during the playoffs. They made
Mhm.
big names for themselves. I think
Yeah,
they're just going to take that extra step.
yeah.
Uh, like I do agree that they are very lefty. I just
That was my
didn't care
only
for,
concern.
yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't care for a lot of their lefties, but I love Gregory Soto. I'm
yeah,
a little mad that he went to Philadelphia.
yeah, for
Um,
sure, for sure.
but
Okay.
I think they're definitely like they should be in the conversation, but I do believe that the Rays are the best one. I just wanted to give a little love out to
Okay, no, that's totally fair. I'm actually going to double down on the city of brotherly love, apparently, because for our next question, the best lineup, I have the Philadelphia Phillies as my best lineup in baseball.
okay.
Um, I think last year they proved a very weird, note about going out and getting guys who are traditionally non-defensive players, all offensive guys.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They went and got a slew of offensive talent in, Nicholas Castellanos. They had added Kyle Schwarber, guys who are known for being power bats. Kyle Schwarber is like the weirdest leadoff man in the world. Uh, and
I
it's
I think Trey will probably take over that leadoff spot though.
what that I hope so. I mean, I would very much like to see Trey Turner return to a situation where he is the leadoff man. But in that sort of theoretical, Trey Turner, Schwarber, Castellanos, once Harper gets healthy again, even if it takes a little while, I like what he does there. I think Brandon Marsh, we have not seen the full upside of, and I know you were big on him when he was with the
Yeah, I like
Angels.
Marsh.
I think he's on the way up. Alec Boehm is on the way up. I still very much like what he can produce as again, all the pressure's off when you're hitting seventh, eighth in one of these lineups.
Yeah.
The second baseman, Bryson Stott, is their second baseman currently. The reason he is their second baseman is predicated on the fact that they tried him out a little bit at short last year, didn't love what he did defensively, but loved his offensive capability. So he's going to probably bat nine for you, him or Marsh. Um, and then you have the best hitting catcher in baseball in JT Realmuto. So I mean, it's for me, this is there's no holes. If your greatest hole is Brandon Marsh in center or Bryson Stott in at second base, those are replaceable positions.
Yeah.
Those are we can go get an expiring contract at the deadline and fill center field with a Michael Taylor, or we can fill second base with a Jonathan Scope, something like that. So just pad it. But I think the bones are so solid with this lineup up and down. They can do it all, whether it be contact power, getting on base, moving guys over. It's so complete to me that I was a huge fan of this Phillies lineup going in.
All right. I'm gonna go where I thought you were gonna go,
Hmm.
and that's gonna be the Padres. I think
Okay.
they're the best lineup in baseball. It's hard to argue with it. This is before Tatis returns. You have Jose Calm leading off, who I think he's gonna be good, especially I think he's gonna have a good World Classic, and that's gonna translate into the beginning of the year. Then you have Juan Soto, Machado, Bogarts, Cronenworth, Cruz, Carpenter. I from the lineups I saw, a lot of people had Cruz and Carpenter in the same lineup. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's gonna happen.
It would probably just be to
It'd
until
probably be a
Tatis.
DH first base situation,
Yeah,
um,
maybe.
which
Yeah,
would probably be
potentially.
their best lineup, especially in the playoffs. That's probably
Yeah,
their best lineup to have.
yeah.
Then you have Austin Nola, Trent Grisham. I just think it's really good. A lot of guys who get on base. You have a lot of power in there too. And then you add Tatis onto this.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be your leadoff guy. So then you bring Kelsum Kim down to the bottom of the order to be that 8-9. It's just going to be a crazy, crazy lineup that's going to be one of the hardest to get through
Yeah,
without
no,
just
I don't disagree with you like at all. I mean this was a there were a couple lineups that I thought were very good,
yeah.
just top to bottom. But I think for me, my where it went for me was the I liked the floor of the Padres 8-9
Mhm.
more than I liked the floor,
Okay.
or I'm sorry, I liked the floor of the Phillies 8-9 hitters of Stott and Brandon Marsh.
Yeah.
more than I like the floor of Austin Nola and uh, Trent Grisham was ultimately what it came down to. Because I mean, they're stacked offensive teams regardless.
Yeah.
But I
See,
think that's
I
what
think they're
my
going to
separation is.
benefit from seeing the most heaters in that
Yeah.
line. I think that's where Nola and Grisham are probably going to have more up years. So that's why I kind of leaned more towards the Padres.
Okay, that's fair. That is definitely fair. All right. Next up, what is a rule change you're most excited for this year?
The one I'm most excited for is definitely the shift ban. I got really tired of the shift because I feel like it disguised bad defense with just good placement and
Yeah.
sabermetrics, and I think that it got way out of hand, especially when it came down to the fourth outfielder. I
Yeah.
hated that, especially as someone who's played the outfield. I would hate that. Like I feel like that's a slap in the face to me that we need an extra guy out here. So I just don't like it. I feel like it just got abused. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see more action on the field, more base runners, higher average. I feel like that's going to be a real good thing. I'm really excited about seeing.
So I am going to 100% agree with you here. The shift ban is definitely something I'm excited for. There's elements of it that I do not love. Growing up as a middle infielder, playing a lot of middle infield throughout my life, second is short. One of the things that always I you know gravitated towards was the ability to sort of you know step back onto the outfield grass for a guy
Yeah,
who maybe was a little bit more of a power bat, but I knew I could you know I
target.
could beat him with the throw,
Yeah,
kind of thing if he didn't move too well. Taking that away feels a little much for me. That being said, I'm here's where it gets weird, and for our viewers who I assume are primarily East Coast just by nature, uh, the shift was the most East Coast thing in baseball last year. So I have a stat in front of me. 76% of the time, a shift of four players in the outfield, even just a second baseman stepping back onto the outfield grass in a
yeah,
lefty overshift, was done by either the AL Central or the AL East or the NL East.
mm,
76% of the time the shift happened was one of the East Coast teams. So for me, it is going to completely change the way the game I watch is played because
yeah,
I watch a lot of Yankees baseball. I watch a lot of Mets baseball. When MLB Network is, giving us coverage of something, it's probably an East Coast team. So it's definitely going to give us more of the real feel here on the East. Also, I just, in general, uh, I agree. Offense is fun. Offense
yeah.
is cool. That definitely helps out. And I'm just going to tie this straight into the next question, which is the rule change you're least excited about, because it's too easy offense, which
Okay.
is the pickoff rule. I don't know how much you've read on this one, which is
Yeah,
it is a maximum of so you get two pickoff attempts, and then if you throw over to base a third time, you have to get the runner out, or the runner is allowed second base regardless.
yeah.
And
I
I
think that.
feel that this has now created too much of uh, I mean, it's a base stealer's paradise.
Yeah, my thing about it is it going to count as a stolen base in like the records, or are they just gonna
It counts as a balk.
it counts as a balk? Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a stolen base. They reward or they count a balk against the pitcher.
Okay.
For me, I mean, I'm not trying to pad stats. If I'm standing out on first base, my biggest thing right now is okay, I'm going to take an aggressive lead and just lean back towards the base, knowing I'm diving back in.
Even if I'm not
And
gonna
the
run.
second time he does it,
Yeah.
like if he throws twice, after that, I'm cutting it loose no matter what. Because either he has to come entirely to first base and I have a
Yeah.
jump start to get to second. And odds are he's not going to come a third time back to first base because he's going to be so scared of if he doesn't get me out, I have a clear shot at second. Like this is such a ridiculous. Uh, I understand the whole premise of speeding up the game. I hated this
Yeah.
because I feel like you really walked yourself into too much of a
I feel
loophole.
like it's the number is harsh. Like I get what they're trying to do, but I feel like two pickoffs is harsh.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's going to be hard for that. I think maybe in the next like year or two, we'll probably see that number rise a little bit to try to
Yeah,
balance it out a little more. But I do think that's harsh. My uh rule, it's not that I'm least excited about it. It's just for me, it's not the most eye-popping change. And that's going to be the bases being a little bit bigger.
yeah,
It's not really like catch. It's going to help out with stealing bases every now and then with a few
yeah.
guys who don't have good jumps. Um, but it's mostly just a safety rule, so it's not really something that an average viewer is going to notice, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Where I think it's good. I think this is the rule that's going to affect the game the least amount.
that's fair. I get that. I think the one I would have also liked to just throw out that I'm also not a huge fan of is actually the pitch clock. Um, as a guy who has gone on the record as not liking pitchers very much in general, this is a very pitcher friendly rule. Pitchers like the ability to control the game, you know, your ability as a hitter to sort of step out and take your time getting into that box and screwing with the pitcher's timing. This is your one opportunity. And,
Yeah,
you know, if you were to poll 95% of pitchers, working fast works for them because they can
yeah,
control the tempo of the game that way. They're in a rhythm, they're in a zone. And as a hitter, you know, that slow, you know, getting into the box, that slow, you know, put your hand up as you dig in, Derek Jeter stop. Like those are things that work for us to negate some of the pitcher's advantage
yeah,
already. And I don't love this. You look
yeah.
at some of the guys.
I was kind of on your side until I heard an interview with CC Sabathia, who
Uh,
is fighting for it in the players union. He was the one who was fighting the most for the pitchers
yeah,
count, and he was pretty much telling the interviewer, and he kind of convinced me on it. He goes, I don't think he's like, I think the pitching clock is going to make the velocity drop a little bit
oh, I could see
because of
that.
because of how short a lot of pitchers
Yeah,
have in between. They're not going to be giving 1000% taking a 20-25
yeah,
second break and then getting up and going again. Like they have less time. So he was explaining that he feels like he can see more of a return to working the corners type of
yeah.
pitching and pitchers learning how to pitch again instead of learning how to throw. And I
I could
feel
see
like
that.
that's gonna be
I
what
mean,
it
yeah,
is. And I think that's gonna benefit both sides of the ball.
I like that. I like that. So another rule change that we touched on vaguely was the change in schedule.
Yeah. I
So
think that if we were going to count that, that would have been my number one.
as most positive
It's
or most negative?
most negative. I hate
Ooh,
the
okay.
change schedule.
Yeah. I think it's a very two-sided coin. I think it's going to do very well in terms of, you know, ensuring that it makes the game feel more global. Or not
Yeah.
global, but you know, more national, if you will, where, you know, the Yankees are coming into every town in the country and, you know, barnstorming kind of thing. Giving players in these, you know, central, you know, cities and stuff more exposure, more time to sort of play against the big markets and stuff like that in every division. It is very hit or miss because I also hate. I'm gonna be honest. I've gone on the record. I hate the Yankees last month of the season because I feel like none of the games freaking matter. We're
Yeah,
playing the Pirates,
that's my
right?
thing.
Yeah, we're playing the Pirates to close out the year. Like that's stupid to me.
If you're gonna do it, at least have the division games towards
Yeah,
the end.
that is the bigger thing. I think it there's a way to do it right that it was not done in the
Yeah.
initial offering of this. I think they were
And I
just
think the thing is with the Mets and most teams don't play within their division in September,
yeah,
which
it's
which is the
ridiculous.
time you want to play your division and get
Yes,
hot.
or at the bare minimum, give me division teams, or give me at least within the freaking you know, within the league. I want to see American League teams vying for that final wild card spot at the very
Yeah.
least, like
Like I don't
going
want to
head to
see
head.
interleague play in
Yeah,
September.
exactly. I think that's the big one. So speaking of which, Team most positively impacted by the schedule change this year. Who do you got?
All right, so I got the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think
Hmm.
benefit the most.
Okay.
Just from the fact that they're losing games in division, they're not going to be beat up by the Padres and Dodgers as much this year.
Yeah.
And the young talent will, I think, will make that jump, or a little bit of a jump this year, and they will face up teams around the same talent level with a lot of other bad divisions. And I'll absolutely take the Diamondbacks rotation over every single bottom tier team there is any day of the week.
Yeah.
I think the Diamondbacks will probably benefit the most from this.
I like that. I actually also went with an NLS team, but it's one that might surprise you a little bit. I went with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Okay.
So I think the Los Angeles Dodgers are not returning. I mean, it's not even a question. They're not returning the team they had a year ago.
Yeah.
With Trey Turner now gone, Cody Bellinger now gone. I feel like they lost somebody else big. That's just not
Justin Turner's not there.
Justin Turner's gone. So they've continued to sort of bleed for 2 years. Last year, obviously, they brought in Freddie Freeman. They went on to become, a 111 win team. This year, they were slated to not be as good objectively. Now, the thing they did not do well last year was play their own division.
Yeah. Besides, I
Uh,
think
so
Arizona's the only one they
statistically,
had a positive record against.
huh?
I saw.
Yeah, it was something like that. So they had the worst interdivision, or they had the worst divisional record of any division winner in baseball last year. And
That's
now you're giving them an out.
yeah.
So for a team that did not play their division well and already won 111 games, now obviously I chose the Padres because I just believe the talent stepped up there in a different way. But the Dodgers themselves still have a very good opportunity to be a very good ball club. This could be another situation where we have 200 win ball clubs in a single division, a la what we had with the Yankees and Red Sox a few years back. I think that was 2018 when the Red
Yeah.
Sox win the World Series. Um, I think we might have something akin to that again because of the fact that the Dodgers now have more of a reprieve from their own division that they struggled against. So that was mine. And converting that, the team who did the best and won their division last year uh, is the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
And now a St. Louis Cardinals ball club, because the next question was who's going to be worst impacted. And for me, it's the St. Louis Cardinals
Yeah.
because they had the ability to stomp out one of the worst divisions of baseball. The only thing behind them is the AL Central. Now they're forced to, and they played their division impeccably well. Now they're forced to play more games against the NL Central and NL West. Those very heavy top tier teams that they did not play well against. And you now open yourself up to play the Astros, the Mariners, the Guardians or White Sox, the Yankees, Red Sox, the Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, potentially Orioles, depending on how that works. Like there's too many more top tier teams that the Cardinals struggled against. So that was a team that really, I think, takes a hit, honestly, for me.
Yeah, no, I had the same thing. I was a little bit more dramatic. I said every single National League and American League Central team is gonna get hurt because
Mhm.
they can't beat up on each other as
Yeah,
much.
yeah, it's going to be a rough year to be
But
a
the Cardinals, I
Midwest
think,
team.
are definitely the most impacted
Yeah,
because even though I do think they got better, so I think it might balance, but it's definitely going to be a little bit tougher of a schedule for them.
yeah, the central teams are going to struggle mightily. So I like where you were at just overall. But as sort of that team that's expected, I think I don't think I'm going too far here to say that the Cardinals were of all the central teams, all 10 of them combined, the Cardinals have the highest expectations on them.
Yeah,
And quite frankly, we could see a situation where the Cardinals are limping into the playoffs at 89, 90 wins and still winning that division. But, it definitely does not look great going in kind of deal. All right. A bad team you can see getting out to a very hot start.
do you want me to take this, or you want to go first?
Up to you. I can take this one first, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I went Boston Red Sox.
Okay.
This is a team who is going to be plagued by the fact that their starting rotation has an inability to stay healthy. When you look at, collectively, Chris Sale, Corey Kluber, James Paxton, this is not a team known for health. On top of it, they're gonna hope to ride a hot hand of Adalberto Mondesi coming in to replace Trevor Story. Kike Hernandez is historically one of the best first month hitters in baseball. It's a weird stat if you look it up. His April and May stats are always incredible for some reason. It's very specific. Um, so for the Boston Red Sox, on top of it, I think in that first month of the season, they play the Detroit Tigers, the Kansas City Royals, the Pittsburgh Pirates. They play a lot of lower or at least same tier teams, where I feel they can be kind of the team that jumps out early, and surprise some folks, given they're considered to be the fourth, if not fifth place team in the AL East.
Yeah.
But I can see them getting out to that really hot start early on.
So I actually went with the Pirates. I think the young kids, especially Brian Reynolds, they're going to want to start off hot. I think they're going to have a decent spring training. And again, they play a lot of more better teams. I was looking at their schedule. They play again. They start off with Cincinnati, then they go to Boston, then they play the White Sox, Houston, St. Louis, the Rockies, again Cincinnati, and the Nationals. I think they
Yeah,
can pretty much surprise a few of them, win a few of those like tougher series, but then definitely beat out Cincinnati, beat out Washington, uh, kind of split it with the Rockies. But I feel like they can definitely, start off hot, young kids go off, and then reality will come in June,
yeah,
kind of like slap them around, be like, all right, guys, you guys aren't as good as you think you are.
nah, for sure. I can see that. See, on the inverse now, we go to the team, the best or the good team who gets off to a bad start. And this is where immediately I went St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay.
I hate their first month of the season. They played essentially what are considered to be division winners or at least World Series contenders in a
Yeah,
majority of their games for the first month. They play the Dodgers, they play the Padres, they play the Mets, and they play the Braves. That is a rough
that is a rough month.
first month of the season. And I think they also had games, if it wasn't the Astros, it might have been the Mariners, something like that. It's a terrible first month to be a Cardinal fan. Great if you're just trying to watch good baseball.
Yeah.
Uh, Great if you're trying to watch good baseball. However, it's just I don't get me wrong. If the Cardinals come out of that first month blazing and they beat all these teams, that
Or at
is
least at 500, they're in a good spot.
yeah. I was going to say if they come out really hot, they're going to be the best team in baseball. Let's just throw that out there. But I just think the odds are stacked against them based on what the early sort of schedule is. They're a weird team where they sort of have the inverse of what we've seen for a lot of folks,
Mm,
where they have a very difficult first month and last month of the season,
yeah.
where the middle, those summer months are just, it feels like a cakewalk for the Cardinals around the All Star break, stuff like that. So very, very different ends of the spectrum with what we were talking about with some of the other teams. There you go. Who's your good team coming out bad?
Um, so I have the Braves.
Okay.
And it's not based on their schedule because their schedule is okay. They play, it's probably like 50-50
Yeah.
contenders and bad teams. It just happens every year. Is the Braves start off slow in April and May, and then they turn it up once it hits June,
Yeah.
and then they don't look back. It's been happening the last 3-4 seasons, and I feel like it's just going to happen again. I don't think the cold months agree with them that well.
That's fair. That is fair. All right. So up next we have the one of the first three questions about players specifically. And this one is kind of an interesting question to sort of just be lingering out there. Will Trevor Bauer pitch for a Major League Baseball team in 2023? You want to start this one off?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
He's absolutely not going to pitch for any team. I don't. I think he's done. I think he's done in baseball. Whether
Okay.
he was done, he was already had the target on him before the
Yeah.
allegations, and
Yeah.
even if the allegations came out not true, I
Yeah,
think is
this
just
was
too damning
all
that it's probably
injuries.
that it's just
Yeah,
he's biting the hand that fed him, and
yeah.
teams are done. I'm looking at you.
Uh,
Don't be those guys.
huh?
Said I'm looking at you, Houston. Don't be those guys.
No, they
Don't
were
be those people.
he Houston would never because he was one of those like constant finger pointers about the Astros and stuff. Uh, I agree with you. He will not, but I'm actually very upset about it.
Okay.
I agree. He is a very unlikable like baseball personality.
Yeah.
He does not come across well to a good deal of the fan base, the ownership. He runs afoul of a lot of folks. That being said, the sheer baseball talent is undeniable. Also for me, he's sort of the first like analytically driven pitchers themselves. It's not just a pitching coach tell you what to throw because it works. It's he was doing this shit before pitching coaches were doing this. Uh, I think Trevor Bauer, the player, especially in a league so constantly devoid of top tier pitching talent, is so good for the game.
Yeah.
And for me, I agree with you that he won't. That means that I would have loved to see just a team who, give me one of the central teams. Give me the Royals. Give me the Reds, a return to where he won the Cy Young. Give me something like that where he could walk through the door, get a chance again. They take that stink of, oh, you hired Trevor Bauer, but they take the stink off of him. And when he's turning out even if it's a mid-tier season by the trade deadline, that they could flip him for more prospects to help their rebuild and then put him in a position to be a third, fourth, fifth, who knows how good he's pitching at that point,
Yeah.
starter on a contender. I think I think any team in Major League Baseball would be remiss to not take a look. But it's unfortunate because they're all just going to pass subjectively. So
Yeah. I just think he just burned too much out of him.
yeah, no,
He
I
like you said,
yeah
he's the most like I think he's the most unlikable person in baseball since Roger Clemens.
yeah. Well, there's also Tony La Russa.
Yeah, that too. That's just on our podcast.
Yeah, we're not a fan. We're not a fan. Uh, oh man, that's unfortunate. All right. So up next, uh, a burning question for a lot of folks: will Brian Reynolds end the season in Pittsburgh?
Did you want to take this one?
I can start this one out.
Yeah.
So man, this is where I've struggled because I can see Brian Reynolds as a fit on so many teams.
Yeah.
I think originally, so I'm just going to throw this out there. I had three teams penciled in that he would end this on. None of them Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Um, First, I said he will end the season in Pittsburgh as a member of the Miami Marlins, who will be in Pittsburgh for the last, uh, you know, stay end of the season. Uh, just because I love the pitching core as always with the Marlins, I figure
Yeah.
if they're like a fringe wild card team, I can see them, taking a shot at him.
Yeah.
Uh, Jazz Chisholm right now is going to be their center fielder. I don't know if I love it yet. But at least, if you're going to stick Jazz in the outfield, maybe move to left, let, Reynolds play
Try to,
center. I like that fit. If the Marlins get off to a crazy hot start and feel that they're in contention for a wild card spot, I liked that. Then I went Orioles, which is something I mentioned on the last podcast. I love, him going back to his home state of Maryland, him being that third outfield piece with Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins, freaking incredible fit. And then I settled on, okay, what does the one team who's gonna want to win, clearly doesn't want to pay it this year, but will pay it down the road in an extension? It's the Los Angeles Dodgers for me. They need a center fielder. Chris
yeah.
Taylor can't be it. Uh, it's for me, it's too cut and dry. They have the pitching prospects. They have guys like Andy Pajes or Miguel Vargas who theoretically can be flipped in that deal as well. They have too deep of a system. It's too cut and dry for me that it's the Dodgers.
Yeah. No, I don't have him staying and ending the season in Pittsburgh either. I think eventually Cashman will make the move.
Ooh,
I think Cashman will eventually make the move, especially if the kids aren't playing well, which my narrative is I want the kids to go out, play great.
Yeah.
But if they're not, I can see him making that move just to try to save his job on that part.
Okay.
And then if he doesn't end up in New York, the team I really want to see him in is you sold him to me on on the last episode. Is I want to see him in Baltimore. I want to see
Right.
him in Baltimore. I think he would be great in Camden Yards.
How fun would that be?
It would
Because
it
you
would be a lot
know
of
they'll give him like the 17 million over like 6 years
yeah.
extension or whatever the hell
They'll
his
give him the Benintendi money. What
yeah,
Benintendi's, and I think he's worth maybe a little bit more than that, to be honest. That's just
probably.
um
But it's just I think it's
yeah. I
oh
want to see it
god, that would be
happen.
such a good fit, wouldn't it? And I
Yeah,
I hate saying that as a Yankee fan who has to face him then, but it's like, oh god,
it'd be a lot of fun to watch because I already really like their outfield as it is,
right,
and just adding Reynolds to it, it's so much fun. Like
right.
I want it to happen.
As a baseball fan,
As a
objectively, that
baseball
is my
fan,
favorite.
objectively, I want it to happen.
That is such a
Um,
fun destination. That is
but
the
I feel
best
like
outfield in
Cashman,
baseball.
especially with how everything's been going down, has a lot
Yeah,
of pressure, and I feel like he's going to have to make that move if the Yankees are underperforming.
yeah. And the last question, then, something close to your heart. Shohei Ohtani.
All
All
right.
right. Where will Shohei Ohtani end the 2023 regular season?
I don't have any hope that he's in anything other than an Angel uniform at the end of the year. I think they missed their window, and at this point, they are too stubborn to do anything. If it didn't happen last offseason or by the last year's trade deadline or this offseason, it should have already happened, man. Like we're already getting the least amount. I feel like they're going to try to convince themselves either they're too stubborn or too foolish at the trade deadline to be like, hey, we can make a shot at this wild card. Meanwhile, they're like 10 games back.
Okay, I'm gonna just come right out and say I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I
Like,
just think they're too stubborn. I think Moreno, the GM over there, I just think they're too stubborn to
yeah,
do it.
they're gonna sell themselves on the narrative that he wants to be there.
Yeah,
And
because
I don't
all I've been
agree.
hearing out of spring training is everyone's talking
Yeah.
about, oh, we're going to convince him to stay. We're going to convince him to stay.
Which
And
I mean, more power to them if they can. However,
they can't.
so then so here's the thing. I hated that I feel like we're both right.
Yeah.
So then I tried to figure out, okay, if that's not the one, who is the one?
Oh, if
And
it's
I
not the
was thinking to myself, huh?
if it's not the one, it's the Mets.
Well, here's the thing. I was thinking, like, all right, it would kind of, unless the Mets felt specifically that another ace pitcher
Mm,
and a left-handed hitting designated hitting bat is the thing to get them over the hump, which are
it
both
is.
things they have a lot of already this year. Like you could just wait, pay more than anyone next year was my thought process, right? So I don't really see it for them in during the season. I see
Yeah.
them paying for it next year. Then I said, okay, Dodgers is the other one, right? Their pitching core for this year is so solid, it's so deep.
It's really good. I like it.
Like, does Ohtani make sense there? I didn't really love that. Yankees, even, I said, all right, a left-handed designated hitter. Ohtani will never make sense for the Yankees as long as Giancarlo Stanton is there.
Yeah.
So I didn't love
It's just
that.
that the DH is just clogged at that point.
And then I thought, okay, so who's a contending team
I
who
mean, to
could
be honest,
use
though,
a
that
starting pitcher? Wait a minute. Contending team who could use a starting pitcher, left-handed DH, and has a boatload of prospects at positions they already had filled by other young players, specifically the St. Louis Cardinals.
ooh, I like that. I like
Or
that.
theoretically, you can move. I think he's ranked as baseball's top five, one of the top five prospects in baseball. And Jordan Walker is a third baseman who's going to sit behind Nolan Arenado. Then on top of it, you could throw in Mason Wynn, who's sitting behind Tommy Head. You could throw in a Dylan Carlson because you have a couple more outfield prospects sitting behind him. You can throw in a pitching prospect like Matthew Liberatore or Michael McGreevy. You could throw them into this. You could give the Angels the package they want and still know you're not ruining your team now or in the future because the Cardinals have a very good system.
Yeah.
And then you could, even for a half season rental, bring in an ace pitcher
And bad left-handed bat.
and the left-handed
Yeah.
DH bat that you
Yeah.
man.
I do like that. I do like that. I don't know if the Cardinals will be aggressive enough to do it though.
I mean, maybe not. There's a good chance they won't, but
Yeah.
I went fit at that because if I'm the
Yeah.
Dodgers, that's I'm sitting pretty and saying, it's a 50-50 shot we get him next year.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be
Although
a
I do think you brought up the Yankees, I do think the Angels are stupid enough to take on Stanton.
no,
I think
there's
they
no way.
I think
There's
they're
no
dumb.
way.
I think they are dumb enough to do that.
You
Just
can't
from
you can't
personally.
convince me of that.
Uh, I'm pretty sure I just convinced the Angels to do that because they are taking the Yankee scraps at this point.
Outside of telling the Yankees you have to take Rendon in the process as well, there's no way.
I mean, would you take Rendon if he's healthy? Rendon and Otani?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
But do I
exactly.
want Rendon for that money knowing his hit issues? That's like
I think
taking
he only
Stanton for the
has
same money.
well, he only
Stanton's
has like
only ready.
he only has like 2 years left on his deal. I think if he's
Stanton's
healthy.
only $27 million a year,
Yeah,
which now seems like nothing.
yeah, true.
Aaron Hicks is making half of that, and we hate him. Like, it's a weird
I
situation.
do
Like,
like that me and you both have him though. Like if it all comes down to it,
yeah,
that they're just gonna be stubborn enough to try to talk them.
yeah, no, they're gonna. I feel like they're gonna be in a weird spot come the All-Star break, trade deadline around there where they're still kind of in it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, it's gonna be a weird one for them. I don't know. But anyway, this was a fun one.
This is a fun one.
Baby cousin, thank you for doing this with me.
Of course.
All right, and thank you guys for tuning in. It has been real. It has been nice. It has been really, really nice. And we'll talk soon.